Love is awful and scary and sad. Am I basing this on personal experience? Of course not. There's hardly any activity, any enterprise, which is started with such tremendous hopes and expectations, and yet which fails so regularly as love. So love is kind of like a startup. High hopes, big investments, staggeringly low chances of success. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about anyone's personal experience of love. I am not qualified to do that. I can't even tell if I'm falling in love or having another hypomanic episode. So, it's a coin toss. So I don't want to talk about experience, I want to talk about the stories we tell ourselves about love, because we keep buying into them like investors looking for the next unicorn. For centuries now, the most popular and universal story has been the story of romantic love, which goes like this. There is a person, one person, who will make you happy. Already a lot to contend with there, but then when this happens, you are supposed to be as secure and fulfilled as you were in your mother's womb, as blissful as a Christian in heaven, and all of this has to last forever. Which is a compelling story, and we love those, but it does gloss over some stuff. Okay, you like her feet, but what's next?
So this is love.
Squabbles over money, boredom, festering resentment.
So this is love.
Dwindling sex drives, unhappy children, betrayal, marriage counseling, divorce, alimony. You can probably tell I'm Eastern European. It's like love, doom. Doom everywhere. Point is, some, like philosopher and soft-boiled egg Alain de Botton, think that the mismatch between romantic ideals and reality is bad for us. But we must be getting something out of it, because why else would it be in every song and story? So I think it's worth looking at romantic love. Where it came from, why it's so dysfunctional, to put it mildly, and whether there's other ways of living happily ever after, or less miserably. The thing is, we did not always believe in romantic love. Historians and couples counselors have been pointing out for a while now that the notion of marrying for love is rather new. It used to be that marriage was just for practical purposes, like sharing goats and things, and sex was for going to brothels and having babies. What we now call romance was just for courtly knights pining after inaccessible ladies, and truly transcendent love was for God. In Christian texts up until the 17th century, the word love usually referred to feelings towards God or neighbors, rather than toward a spouse. But then modernity came along and society became way more secular and rational and mechanized, and we were like, oh no, we need a little drama in our lives, we need a little fatalism. And the romantic poets were like, hold my ale. Most of our big ideas about romantic love come from Romanticism, an artistic movement of the 18th century in which a bunch of high-strung young men got upset with the cold, newly industrial modern world and ran off into the woods to cavort with deer and write poems about hair ribbons.
I am fucking crazy, but I am free.
Now, this is not to say that the kind of love we call romantic love did not exist at all before the 18th century. But guys, Romeo and Juliet were rich. Orpheus and Eurydice were demigods. The run-of-the-mill commoner did not have time for this nonsense. Maybe they could swing a roll in the hay on the down low in between plowing the field and picking at their plague scabs. But romantic love was rare and generally portrayed as tragic because it was seen as a threat to civilized society. In ancient India, falling in love before marriage was seen as a disruptive, almost antisocial act. The Greeks thought lovesickness was a type of insanity, and in the Middle Ages, the French defined love as a derangement of the mind that could be cured by sexual intercourse, either with the loved one or with a different partner. So, just 200 years ago, choosing a partner because you love them was a radical idea. It still is now in many parts of the world. Psychologist and couples counselor Esther Perel puts it like this. Marriage was a pragmatic institution, and then we added romantic needs to the pairing. And these romantic needs, they are a lot. Before Romanticism, words like, I feel like I'm single-handedly buying out all of Amazon's shittiest, cheapest costumes. Anyway, before Romanticism, words like ecstasy, passion, bliss were mainly used in religious contexts. And it was actually the Romantics who popularized the idea of love, interpersonal love, as something sacred and divine. In fact, Alain de Botton points out that the rise of Romanticism in the 18th century coincided with a decline in organized religion in Europe. He even suggests that in many ways, Romanticism may have become a secular replacement for religion. And it makes sense. Romantic love can feel like something extraordinary and irrational and bigger than us. It demands a lot of faith and a lot of worshipful rumination about the loved one, which is basically prayer. In all these ways, romantic love is like God, our Father who art in heaven, Sky Daddy. In Phoebe Waller-Bridge's brilliant show Fleabag, the connection between romance and religion is played with a lot.
Oh, I don't know what this feeling is.
Is it God or is it me?
I don't know.
It's no coincidence that in season 2, Fleabag's love interest is a priest. Or maybe I should say, the priest. Oh man. The show points out similarities between romance and religion. For example, that both are primarily learned through stories. I guess we just can't get by without something nice to believe in, because the moment we were like, hey, maybe God isn't real, we were also like, hey, the girl next door is a heavenly angel. But there are two big problems with thinking of love as this sacred divine thing. One is that it's all fine when you're worshiping God. He is in the sky. You can idealize him all you want. But you cannot do the same thing to the girl in your AP bio class. She is not God. She is just trying to get through her day. And also, it's fine to think of love as ecstasy and bliss, but ecstasy does not last forever. The word ecstasy comes from the Greek ekstasis, which means standing outside of yourself. It means that you transcend yourself, but it's also a moment when time stands still. It literally has the word stasis in it. It is not dynamic, and eventually the moment passes. The priest in Fleabag ends up choosing God over her, and paradoxically, he seems to me to be the truest romantic of all.
Being a romantic takes a hell of a lot of hope. I think what they mean is, when you find somebody that you love, it feels like hope.
He picks religion over interpersonal love because he wants what every true romantic wants, a supernatural, transcendent kind of love that lasts forever.
To take words from this book of love, be strong and take heart, all you who hope in the Lord.
But these emo milksops were so stuck on the idea of love as heavenly bliss that they just broadened the definition to include not only experiencing love, but also wanting it to happen.
Is it me? Am I the drama? I don't think I'm the drama.
I carry it well. Most romantic stories seem to focus on the yearning for love rather than the actual loving. Like typically most of the story, the lovers are apart, trying to unite and overcome the obstacles that are separating them. If we do get to see the lovers together, then at the end they're often tragically separated by societal pressures or illness, or sometimes just by the fact that two people apparently cannot fit on a huge wooden door and one of them has to freeze in the Atlantic. The Romantics inherited this fetish for yearning from the chivalric poetry of the 12th and 13th centuries. These were tales of knights and the noble, typically married ladies they served. A lot of these illustrations have balconies, which later was continued in Romeo and Juliet and lots of other stories, because the balcony is a good visual representation of courtly love. The lady is above, as befits her higher social status, and the knight is below, worshipping her from a distance. Oh, I see that in this one she's actually hoisting him up. I like this. This woman needed to get laid so bad that she built this whole machine with pulleys and levers, like a sex engineer, like a horny trailblazer. But most of these romances were unconsummated. The knights would just clank around like chaste subs stuck in the medieval friend zone. So from these stories, the Romantics inherited the idea that the purest, most ecstatic love is the kind that is completely unattainable, and so it's never fulfilled. And really, that's the universal formula for something to become romantic. It's, I want it, I can't have it. Anything can go there. A lady, a pizza. Imagine you thought there was pizza in the fridge, you open the fridge, it's gone. Immediately, you're like, oh, those mushrooms, the rosemary sausage, the mozzarella. In 1979, psychologist Dorothy Tenev coined the term limerence, which basically means an obsessive, unrequited crush. Essentially, with limerence, she just medicalized addictive love. It's the same as how before we had depression, we would just call it melancholy or the doldrums. Great word. And the symptoms of limerence match up perfectly with how the Romantics saw love. I'd like to demonstrate this using the example of a miserable little twat who also happens to be the hero of a seminal proto-romantic work, The Sorrows of Young Werther by Goethe. Idealizing the person's characteristics, whether they are good or bad. Okay, so Werther is obsessed with this girl named Charlotte who is engaged. And here's one of the ways he describes her. She is a bright, beautiful creature whose presence softens pain and sheds happiness around whichever way she turns. Despair at rejection, euphoria at perceived signs of reciprocation. At one point, Werther gets upset that Charlotte is sharing oranges with people sitting next to her at a social event. But at every slice, which from politeness she offered to her neighbors, I felt as though a dagger went through my heart. Yeah. Intrusive thoughts, including fantasizing about imaginary scenarios, being reminded of the person everywhere. I cannot pray except to her. My imagination sees nothing but her. All surrounding objects are of no account, except as they relate to her. Arranging your schedule to increase possible encounters with them. I went this afternoon to tune Charlotte's piano. Extreme shyness and physical symptoms like butterflies around them. I trembled as I took her hand and kissed it. I hadn't reread Werther since high school, and what struck me this time around is what a miserable dick he is. He feels so sorry for himself because of Charlotte, but when this other girl likes him, he says, "Poor Leonora, and yet I was not to blame. Was it my fault that a passion for me was engendered in her feeble heart?" He is also a shit friend. A lot of the book is narrated through letters he writes to his friend Willem, all about how much he loves Charlotte. And does he ask Willem how he is doing, even once? No. Just a wallowing little weasel of a man. He is also in a lot of pain. There's a reason it's called The Sorrows of Young Werther, not The Forever Happiness of Young Werther. And he kills himself in the end. The takeaways are, being in romantic love makes you both miserable and unbearable to be around. According to Merriam-Webster, the earliest known use of the word soulmate is from an 18th century letter by Romantic poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge. But the concept of soulmates dates all the way back to Plato's Symposium, in which the playwright Aristophanes explains how in earlier times humans were glued together in pairs, like this. Zeus saw these things and decided for some reason that they were too powerful. I think I read somewhere that he thought that they were gonna roll too fast, like cartwheel around. I don't know, Zeus was weird. His main hobby was turning himself into different animals so he could chase human women. I actually think he would have had a lot in common with pickup artists. They could bond over having to pretend to be someone else to get laid. Anyway, Zeus did not like these soulmates, so he split them in half and left each half to wander the earth looking for the other. But then the big question is, how do you know that you found your soulmate? The Romantics thought it was this special feeling, the kind of I've known you in another life feeling.
I've been told that when you meet that right person, you know immediately. How come when you meet the wrong person, it takes a year and a half?
But psychoanalysts interpreted this feeling differently. They were like, no, the reason this guy seems familiar to you is because he is an alcoholic, and so was your mom. Freud called this repetition compulsion, when you take something that hurt you as a little kid and then subconsciously try to put yourself in similar situations as an adult so that you can try to fix it on your own terms. And speaking from experience, it doesn't work. The fact that I'm bringing up Freud at all should give you a hint about what comes next. Because psychologically, the description of a soulmate sounds like a very specific person. Just think about it. A soulmate is someone who understands you completely, sometimes even without words. A soulmate loves you unconditionally, just the way you are. You didn't choose each other. Your relationship was predestined. And also, you know that feeling that you sometimes get in the beginning of relationships where you just want to completely be enmeshed in the other person, like crawl into their veins? Psychoanalysts would say, that is the womb, baby. That is you trying to crawl back into the womb. And listen, there is nothing wrong with wanting a mommy or daddy per se. It only gets kind of creepy when you keep saying it out loud.
Oh, mommy, mommy.
But looking for that in your partner does tend to lead to very codependent, unequal relationships. Your partner probably doesn't want to be your mommy or daddy. And also, no one has time for crawling up into the womb when you have a double mortgage on your home. So right now, we seem to be living in a very postmodern era of romantic love, meaning that we've become a lot savvier about the stories we tell ourselves, and most people now seem very aware that romantic ideals are completely unrealistic, but we're still trying our hardest to get there. I mean, not me personally. My heart is a dry crust of rye bread, just bitter and Russian, but the rest of you seem to have come up with lots of ways to fix romantic love. Let me show you a few examples of what I mean. Problem 1. Romantic ecstasy or passion is supposed to last forever. So many of our love stories end with a happily ever after, but then we never get to see the after part, when presumably everyone gets tired of 24/7 and has to go back to work. And there's people who say that this is inevitable, that passion and security are just incompatible, that they're governed by different hormones even. So the solution then is you find contentment and security with one person and passion with others. And I respect the right of everyone to pursue happiness in whatever messy constellations they want. I see your ethical non-monogamy. I see your polyamorous thruples. But I will say this, a partner or a spouse and long-term relationships on the side, not in this economy. And also, even though this idea is presented typically as very enlightened, isn't it just a regression to the way things were before romantic love? Like you have your secure marriage, but then you also have your strumpets on the side. Problem 2, your partner is supposed to be ideal. So when I was little, what I was taught, I guess, about love was that the wonderful thing about it is that it's sort of an inexhaustible resource and everyone deserves it. So in my mind, it was like the most affordable, equal opportunity route to happiness. But on the dunes of internet dating, it's way more like a hyper-competitive market, right? Supply and demand. No matter how great the person you're with is, there's always someone who is hotter or richer or smarter or younger or older, and they're just a swipe away. The sheer number of potential partners is what leads to endless search. And then on the flip side, how do you maximize your chance of being picked? Well, by striving to be successful, by earning a lot of money, by spending all that money on making yourself hotter, and just generally playing nice and participating in the economy. And I'm not trying to say that everything is capitalism's fault. But the outcome of all of this, as Erich Fromm very gloomily puts it, is that instead of thinking about how to be better at loving, we spend so much of our energy on trying to find the right person to love and trying to become more lovable. Problem 3, true love is supposed to be effortless. If you've ever had a conversation about long-term relationships, you've probably heard someone say, oh, relationships take work. It's hard, you gotta put in a lot of effort, you gotta work on it. And it'd be one thing if people, when they said this, sounded like they're talking about, an art project they're passionate about. But whenever I've heard phrases like this, there's always sort of notes of resignation and bitterness. And I think the reason is that people really are still holding on to this belief that true love is supposed to be effortless. Erich Fromm addresses this too, and he points out that the romantic view of love is falling in love, right? It's something that happens despite you. But to him, love is sort of an action and an active choice. And I know that sounds like more work, but the way he puts it is that if you're born to love someone, if it's the most natural thing to you, like breathing, then what's so special about that? You've always had that. So my point is, every time a problem crops up with achieving the romantic ideals, we try really hard to sort of debug it and fix it. It's like the American dream or winning the lottery, the idea that if you just try hard enough and you try enough times and you want it bad enough, you are gonna achieve it against all odds. I realized that so far, this may have been kind of a downer. This is why I shouldn't make videos when I am depressed. But this isn't all my fault. Most people who look seriously at romantic love end up being critical of it. De Botton seems to see it as a conspiracy that he holds responsible for the breakdown of most relationships and all of the world's mental health. Fromm sees it as a narcissistic insanity for two, where you shut everyone else out and focus on one person who you see as an extension of yourself in a kind of delusional, masturbatory hallucination. Even the authors of early romantic stories like Goethe seem to have understood that the romantic lover is just a miserable prick who's unbearable to be around. But according to sociologist extraordinaire Anthony Giddens, bless his heart, we actually do need romanticism for something very important. According to Giddens, it's romantic narratives that allow us to form healthy, loving, and quite unromantic relationships. In his work, The Transformation of Intimacy, Giddens calls this type of relationship the pure relationship and describes both how it's different from romantic love and how it's connected to it. Romantic love demands self-reflection. How do I feel about them? How do they feel about me? Are our feelings profound enough to support a long-term involvement? And this, from a sociological perspective, is what makes romanticism so important. These soft boys helped form modern identity because they connected the concept of freedom of choice with love. People's lives used to be largely defined for them. You lived where your family lived, you believed whatever your mother and father believed, you tilled the same fields, and you basically turned into your parents. Then we decided to get rid of most of these societal constraints. Sometimes I wish, honestly, there were still a few constraints. It would make me feel better about myself. According to Giddens, the only way to function with all this goddamn freedom is to form what he calls a reflexively ordered narrative of the self. The term just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? What he means by this is that you have to be able to imagine your life as a story and yourself as the hero in order to be able to make choices. And romanticism played a huge part in teaching people how to do this. Romanticism is connected to the novel. Actually, the word for novel in Russian is roman. And this is a genre that is not about knights going on quests, but just about normies living ordinary lives. So romanticism and the novel allowed us to see our boring-ass lives as a hero's journey, as a quest for self-realization and fulfillment. Think about how couples often have this whole mythology around the story of how they met and how they fell in love. Or how when you meet someone new that you're excited about, you might imagine your whole future life together. The whole point of romantic love is the story it creates, and this is very important for the development of the pure relationship. The pure relationship is quite different from romantic love, though. The key difference, I think, is that in the pure relationship, it's less important who the person is that you love, and more important what the relationship itself is like. So for example, Werther, he thinks Charlotte is the shit, but their relationship itself is terrible. He doesn't really give a shit about Charlotte. He definitely doesn't see her. And she's just like, oh my god, when will this end? All he cares about is his own dumb feelings. But the pure relationship is not about imagined stories, it's about the lived experience of loving someone. It's not based on anything other than the desire to be in it. It can end whenever one or both partners want it to end. Sexuality in it is plastic, meaning that it's not defined by the need to have children or the need to avoid having children. Trust is built in it through developing intimacy rather than through big promises or cultural rituals. And the partner's roles aren't necessarily gendered at all. They're just individually decided within each couple. So what defines this relationship is that nothing is prescribed. Almost everything is up to the couple without much influence from society. And plenty can still go wrong. The pure relationship can become addictive or codependent too. It demands work too. And it can be really scary to have all the choices be up to you with no one telling you what to do or who to be. But with self-reflection, which we learn from romantic love, it is possible to get it right. And when you do, it still feels like a miracle. If you're into that sort of thing. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this new installment of me talking about things that bother me. If you like this video, please consider supporting me on Patreon. As you can see, I upload so rarely that it'll probably cost you barely anything at all. But also, if I get more patrons, eventually I'll probably be able to start posting more often. Every one of my lovely patrons is featured in the credits of each video, and here they are.